Friends, it is Wednesday, and that means it is Ask a Flower Farmer. And I have so much fun stuff to talk about while y'all are getting all your questions lined up here. So if you've never been to an Ask a Flower Farmer, this is hosted by the gardenersworkshop.com, and we host different people. Oftentimes it's me, but a lot of my peers have been here. And even Ask a Florist, usually about every 6 or 8 weeks. We're here for you to submit your questions connected to flower farming and do our best to answer them. And that's what I'm going to do today. So if you have a question you'd like for me to answer, just post it, not in the comments, but down in that bubble with the little question mark in it. It's at the bottom of your screen. That way your message does not zoom away from me as people load in and come and go, right? So while we're waiting for folks to ask questions, and I know y'all got to have a lot of questions. My students and my club members are just so full of questions right now. I spend time every single morning going into those platforms and answering their question. It's about stuff being butted up, but it's only this tall concerns, and when do you net, and when do you do anything, and anyway, so anything related to flower farming, whether it's cool flowers, starting seeds, warm season, cut flower business stuff, and even farm dogs, if I can answer that for you. So thanks for being here. And first off, we are launching a brand new show, friends, and I haven't spoken about it at all. And it's tonight at 8 p.m. We are launching a second shopping show on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. kind of as a test. A lot of people ask us about coming on at night. And so I have a crew that's willing to do it. And so it's going to be a little shorter show, about a 30-minute program, I believe. And tonight is soil blocking crash course, y'all. So tonight is going to be tons of fun. This is like a bonus show. So 8 p.m. tonight inside the app. You can definitely watch it through social media, but you can't participate in the comments, right? So to get the app, you can either comment app here, or you can simply go to your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop, and download the shop app. And then meet me inside at 8 o'clock. And inside the app is a whole lot of extra stuff that's just really great about it. You can watch replays, you can shop anytime, but you have every product and every seed has videos with it, so you can go in and see what we've harvested from the farm. And anyway, it's just really a lot of fun. So that is the big news, that 8 p.m. on Wednesday nights, at least for probably the month of April, we're doing a show. And if it's a big hit, maybe we'll continue that. So I can't wait to meet you here tonight. And then Friday's show is about sunflower succession planting. And we have had so much excitement here on the farm this morning. So first off, Suzanne and I usually on Wednesdays are always preparing master classes for my membership, right? And working on it and filming and stuff. Well, today, the master class for April is about insects and weeds and identifying them and why you should know and all that stuff. Oh gosh, y'all, if you know me very well, you know that I just absolutely love bugs. Because there's, most of them, 99% of them are actually beneficial in some way, right? And so we were finding bugs to film and IDing them with the app, and just learning a little bit why it's so important. And y'all, we just found so many great beneficial insects in our peonies. Our peonies are budded up and are sticky, and the sticky nectar really attracts the bugs. So we have had so much fun here this morning playing with bugs. And then we also are starting 2 new projects here on the farm. One of them is my hellebore patch, which is huge. Biggest cash crop of my career were those Lenten roses. I mean, the volume, the price per stem, and just everything about it. Anyway, it's getting a makeover. And this morning we started filming for a little YouTube video of the before and after, and that was really, really fun. And also we're redoing a garden in front of the inn. The inn is that little shed that's here on our farm that was a cottage. So just so much fun stuff. And as I was preparing for the show I do after this today, y'all, can you tell I just love talking to people? That's why I have so many live shows. I do the sew-in circle with my membership every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And so I sow seeds, whatever of the season. And I just want to say that anyone that thinks, I actually wrote this down, anyone that thinks there isn't enough variety in annuals has missed the boat. When Bobo gave me the seeds that she wants me to sow today for her as part of the sewing circle, I thought people just, we start 6 different annual grasses several times during the year. And it's like there's just so much variety. And so, low investment, high return. Y'all know that's what I am just really all about. So let's see. So if you have a question, please just post it in the comments, or in not in the comments, in the bubble with the question mark at the bottom of the screen, and let me go in here. And anything, harvesting, growing issues, anything to do with flower farming, seed starting, cool flowers, all of it. You can post it, and I'll do my best. I'm not saying I'll definitely know the answer, but I'll do my best. Great. How do you propagate hellebores? So that's a great question. You don't really, you don't propagate them. However, one of the things that on the video that I shot this morning, one of the things that I talked about, there are so many beautiful new hybrid hellebores out on the market, and they're gorgeous. But those aren't the ones that I grow. I started growing hellebores 35 years ago, before we had the internet, y'all. So I didn't even know, all I knew was what my garden center had, the nursery that I went to. And I bought 3 hellebores, and they were Hellebore orientalis. They're like, I'm sure they're heirlooms. They're old. And they have beautiful mauve type blooms. And they fade out to green or white as they mature, which is the stage you actually cut them in. Anyway, the important difference between what I grow and most of those new hybrids is mine readily reseed, and it takes 2 years to get a big enough plant. They're slow growers. That's why they're so expensive. But those hybrids are sterile, so you don't get that opportunity. And frankly, I find that many of them are not as hardy, meaning they just die out occasionally. I just don't seem to have that problem. So you purchase 3 to 5 plants and plant it in your shady spot. And you can also divide hellebores like you do a hosta. You would do it in the fall. You would never, they're in full bloom. Ours are like ready to be cut right now. So you would not do this now. But next September or October, depending on where you live, you would split them. But it takes a couple, 3 years. If you put hellebores that do reseed, not the sterile ones, it takes about 3 to 4 years, and you'll just have carpets. And then in the fall, we dig up little clumps and place them out, and that's how I got a 30-foot circle around my saucer magnolia. That is absolutely an amazing cash crop, and they're just beautiful because we hardly cut them now, right? So that's how you propagate them. How to propagate dahlias. I am not a dahlia grower, so I really cannot help you with that. But I see more and more people taking cuttings. So, you have to start with, you can start from seed, and you can start from tubers. But I do believe that most of the ones you start from tubers potentially are not the same kind you can start from seed. They're just different bloom looks. I'm not in depth on dahlias. We stopped growing dahlias about 15 years ago. They were just needier in our southern environment than we could make more money growing other things that were in demand as well. So that I can't help you with, but I feel pretty certain if you put that into a search engine, you'll get an answer for that. I just got 4 hellebores from a neighbor. Best advice for soil. So first off, I don't know where you're located, but hellebores prefer to be in shade, particularly if you're in a warm, hot summer environment. And so they grow great at the base of big trees where it sucks the life out of the soil, and most other plants won't really grow there. But still, they appreciate, and we definitely recommend planting them in the fall. If you transplant this time of the year, they're going to need a lot of attention throughout the spring and summer because they aren't established. Versus if you planted them in the fall, you water them in a couple of times and then you leave them, because during the winter, typically it's not hot, the ground doesn't dry out, and it rains and snows potentially more often, right? So well-drained soil, and they do compete very well with tree roots, or they kind of like it's that compost-based kind of soil. It's not wet, but it drains really well, but it holds moisture. That's like a dream for hellebores. And I also find when you're planting under large trees, it's often best to have small clumps to plant. So if you got big plants from a neighbor or something, I'd break them apart into the smallest. You need stems and roots on each piece. The smaller the root ball, the smaller the hole that you have to dig is. And when you're digging around bases of trees, that can make the difference between succeeding and failing. My Gumphrena leaves became brown. What is the problem and how to solve it? So I would imagine, unless you're in Australia, I would imagine they're not planted indoors. Anything could be that. Disease, overwatering. So our Gumphrena is only about that tall right now. It's still in soil blocks, right? But Gumphrena are very susceptible to overwatering diseases and issues. I've killed more trays of Gumphrena than any other transplant that I start, just because once they get it from overwatering. So I would say, without more information, that's what I would say you might want to try. Are there flowers we should not pinch? That's a really great question. In general, any flower that is a brancher, meaning it gets more than one central stem, could benefit from pinching. We don't always pinch, and I never pinch all of them unless it's an emergency, meaning the plants are bigger than I want them to be and we can't plant them yet. We would pinch all of those. But my pinching rule is to pinch 50% of a crop. That way you get benefits of pinching and benefits of not pinching, because it just depends on what side of the fence you sit on over what you actually need. The things you do not pinch are single stem plants. For instance, the sunflowers that we grow, which are the Pro Cut series, they're single. You'll get one flower per stem. You would never pinch them, right? There are some coxcomb varieties. There's many branching coxcomb, and there's many single stem coxcomb. You need to read the description to really tell you that. Our descriptions on our seeds on our sales page and our seeds over at thegardenersworkshop.com will be able to tell you that. But you would never pinch. Another single stemmer is stock. Stock is one flower per plant, so you would never pinch that, right? So that is the moral to that story. All right. 2 times, January and February, Tweedia, only 4 out of 40 germinated. I know it's too late now, but any tips? Kim, I do not know. Ours germinated. Actually, I was just looking at there. Andrew is actually putting a little top dressing of about 1 inch of compost on all of our cool flower beds, because I'm going to do some liquid fertilizing tonight. Or maybe not tonight. I'll be on a show, won't I? Sometime today. And I was just looking, and I was quite surprised how great our Tweedia looked, that we actually wintered over. And then we planted more in very early spring, and our tray was pretty full. I think they're super sensitive to temperature, meaning they need warm soil and cool air, potentially. And I don't know whether you cover the seed with soil or not, because I don't memorize those things anymore. I'd have to look at the instructions. But I would say, first off, make sure you have fresh seed. I have no idea if Tweety is one of those short livers like larkspur is. Be sure you're either covering it or not covering it with soil according to the directions. and just change up something you've done. If it was a warm room, make it a cooler room. And it is a cool flower. So, but I will tell you that ours that were planted last year, fall and very early spring, really went into summer. I mean, we had blue blooms in July. It was ridiculous. So keep trying, because once you get it, you'll be so happy that you have them. What is the closest spacing on snapdragons? The seeds are so tiny, picked up more than one seed per block. So funny enough, you should ask this. I was asked a question, not this question, but a similar question in my student school private board. And she had seen where somebody had put 3 snapdragon seeds into a small soil block and then planted that little cluster of 3 into one 6-inch square of a bed, which is what we use the flower support netting, for plant spacing, right? And she wanted to know if that was the right thing to do. It 100% depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. So there are people that plant that tight, 3 plants in a 6-inch square, in an effort to get the plants to produce one big honking stem. To not really, I mean, when they're tight like that, they tend to not branch, right? And then on the other side of that coin, like the way that I grow snaps, is I put one healthy little transplant right in the center of that 6-inch block, and we get about 15 stems from that one plant. Now, as the last 5 that come off of it aren't 36 inches tall, but they are definitely tall enough. So it just depends on what your end game is and what your goal is. So to answer your question, you can do it either way. But most of us are just looking for good quality stems, not super fat, because then they don't branch. Because we ride our snaps from probably mid-April to mid to late June, from what we fall plant. How long does bellflowers germinate? Not sure I understand that question. Bellflowers is so this is a great example, and I really learned about this when I started writing books. So bellflowers is actually what is called a common name. That's just the name. It's like, where I really learned this from is bachelor buttons. We call them bachelor buttons here on the East Coast. Some people call them cornflowers. So I don't know what flower you're talking about. I'm sorry is what I'm getting at here. If you have a botanical name, then maybe that might help me be able to answer your question. One Dead Duck asked, is there a rototiller you prefer? I love my mantis. It really depends on, again, the size of your garden, and are you gardening or are you farming? I use a Troy-built 8-horse tiller, which actually my husband came with it, y'all. That was part of his gardening dowry. And it's an amazing, it does all the work. It doesn't work you out to actually use it. But when you have a small garden, there might be something else. So for me, and mine is the old model. They don't make them like they used to, right? We actually bought a replacement, and instead of going and buying a new one at the store, after we went and looked at the new ones and saw how plastic they were, we actually kind of stalked some of, like, not Craigslist, but like the Trading Post, which is like the Craigslist of 100 years ago, right? And found somebody selling one. Because here's the thing about tillers. How many people, think about this, how many people buy tillers and either never use them or only use them once or twice, and they're sitting in their garages? That's what happened with us, with that 8-horse Troy, the current one that I have. It's the exact same model that Stevie came with. They called it the 8-horse Troy built. We got it for a song. I think it was $1,000 or something, which was half of what they wanted for a new one. And it was so much better. So I would just say to you, anybody that's in the market looking for a tiller, go to the boards, put a thing out there looking for this particular kind of tiller. You'd be surprised. my husband, who is a plumber and has for all these years been going to people's houses to give estimates and stuff, and he strikes up a conversation with anybody, and you just can't believe the stuff people show him in their garages. I mean, brand new lawnmowers that have never been used. I mean, so don't feel like you have to go buy a brand spanking new one. I bet you can get a great one. And, go with what you love. That's all I know about, I would like to know germination period of Canterbury bells. So there's Canterbury bells is a campanula, and there's many different varieties. Some of them are biennials, some of them are hardy annuals, and they are tough to germinate. And they, in fact, that's one of the few plants that we typically, as we got to be more of a producer, started buying plugs in, because it's all about air temperature. You have to read for your specific variety what is its requirements. Many of them have certain temperatures and ranges and all that kind of stuff. So it could be anywhere from 7 to 40 days is all I can tell you. But it's tough, because it's tough to provide a steady condition for something other than what naturally occurs. And that's why greenhouse growers are so amazing in what they do, because they have temperature control, and that's their secret sauce. It's a lot of investment to do that, but that's why they produce such amazing, amongst other things, plugs. But campanula, delphiniums, lisianthus, eucalyptus now, those are all ones that we are quick to order plugs, because it's just a better investment of our time. At what point do you put the netting on zinnias to keep them from falling over? Good question, Linda. So you always want to try to target installing, we call it flower support netting. And if you need to see it or talk about it or see more about it, you can go over to our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, and just search netting. And it'll come up, and there's a video there also. But you always want to install the netting. It goes at about so let's just say a flower is supposed to grow 48 inches tall, which is what our zinnias pretty much do. So that means you're going to install the netting at the halfway point. So that means at about 20 to 24 inches, right? So you want to install the netting before the plants reach that height, because when you do that, it takes minutes. I mean, minutes to install it on a bed. But if the plants are taller and you have to go fishing the stems through and being careful and all that, it'll take 10 times longer. So you want to install netting at the point, at the halfway mark for the mature height of a flower. And you want to install it before the plants reach that actual halfway maturity. And it just makes it go, every time that and it happens every year. I mean, we just get busy, and there's so much to do, right? That we just frankly get distracted, and then all of a sudden those plants are 30 inches tall. But all it takes is one downpour to just lay them out. That's what makes it worth netting them, even when you're having to take that extra work. So hopefully that helps. And there are so many people that'll say, oh, you don't need to net zinnias. Well, they're not usually commercial producers, because let me tell you what happens. Zinnias get tall, the heads get big, and you wait until the heads are fully developed before you cut it. That means that they are the most susceptible for going down in rain. And so often, when you stand back and look at a 100-foot bed of zinnias that are not netted, after a rainstorm, you look out your window the next morning, it's like, oh my gosh, look, they still look like they're all standing up. And then you get out there to cut them, and they're all bent over, and the stems are like this. You can't use them. So they're straight, and then they're crooked, and they're not usable. Nobody's going to pay you for them. And if you try to make bouquets out of them, you'll lose your mind. We know. We've tried. And, it is just... netting is the reason we have so many flowers to cut, and why the quality is there. So if it's important crop to you, is my moral. If it's important crop to you, then you should net it. There you go. All right, how to treat powdery mildew on zinnias. So we don't do any treatments. We grow the varieties of zinnias, Benary's Giants, which are one of the most mildew resistant, All zinnias get mildew. And in a commercial world, there really is no time to do treatment stuff. It's one of the reasons that we succession plant. So if a bed gets it and it gets out of control, we just mow it because we have more beds available. In a home garden situation, I know that there's all kinds of home remedies. I know that Virginia Tech, here in Virginia, our land grant school, I think they call it our extension office school, has a recipe. You could probably just search engine that, Virginia Tech zinnia mildew recipe. But that's not something in a commercial setting that you would ever have time to investigate and do. That's why we succession plant. When you succession plant, I call it also an insurance policy. Whenever a storm happens and lays stuff down, even when it's netted, pest, disease, anything can happen. You just have other flowers planted, maybe even that same flower again somewhere else. So it's just much quicker and easier. I didn't quite get that the first 10 years of growing. I used to think, why don't they keep nursing that bed instead of pulling it out and planting something else? Because you make a lot more money pulling it out. It's a lot less work, better quality plants, just everything about it. And I just never quite saw that. So we don't treat powdery mildew. We do our best to prevent it from ever happening. What are some of the best perennials to start from seed? So if we grow virtually no perennials here now. So I have started from seed. Funny enough, we just dug one up. You know what we moved this morning, Bobo, is those perennial sunflowers we started back before Jessica's wedding. So it's Heliopsis, which is a perennial sunflower, there's a double, and I think it doesn't have a great name. It's called like Hybrid Rise and Shine or something like that. Anyway, it looks like a yellow Shasta daisy, but it's got lots of petals, and it is super beautiful and hardy, and the native bees really, really love it. So I've started that. We've started a few, but not many. And because perennials, so that's what kind of made me actually thinking about those perennials that we moved this morning, making way for this project. Perennials, the problem with perennials for me is, first off, people think that perennials are less work than annuals. Nothing could be further from the truth, y'all. A perennial takes up space, real estate in your garden every day of the year, year after year. While they may only produce for a very short window of time, typically 2 to 4 weeks, 4 weeks if you're lucky, 2 to 3 weeks most often. And the rest of the year, they need to be kept weeded. They have to be lifted and split, typically every 3 years, to keep them healthy and producing really, really well. And so we learned fairly early on in our career, because I'm a small space city flower farmer. I don't have endless beds. I learned that I could produce so much more in such a small space by growing annuals. And there is no end. When you learn to be a stellar succession planner, there is no end to the flowers that you can grow. High quality harvest, consistent harvest in flowers from here to kingdom come. I do have peonies. Those are our family peonies. We get about 1,000 stems a year from them. They're worth their real estate because they command such a high per plant, per stem price, as do those hellebores. But they both are virtually carefree, and neither one of them were started from seed, right? They were plants. So I don't have any really great advice for you. I'll tell you another little perennial that I always loved, but I was always challenged to get it tall enough to make it worthy, was Veronica Sightseeing. That is just the prettiest little spike. And it comes in pink, purple, and white. And I always loved that, but it just didn't take much for it to be too short. So, as you move forward as a flower farmer, you start dropping the stuff that's on the fence. Stuff that, you're just spending so much of your time and your money focusing on something that's just not going to work out. You soon learn you need to say no more than you say yes to be a successful business owner. So friends, that is going to wrap it up for us today. If you're in my membership, remember 2 o'clock today, Sewing Circle, Today I am sowing a grass, and I'm sowing hyacinth beans for our big tunnel out there. So join with me. I hope to see some of you guys tonight for our debut show of the Wednesday night shop and show, 8 p.m. inside the app. Tonight is a soil blocking crash course. And if you don't have our phone app, it's free. You can go to your phone's app store, or you can comment app here, and we will DM you the link to get it. But you can just go to your phone's app store, and I'll tell you this really quickly. If you do go to your app store and search Gardener's Workshop, we actually have two apps. One is the shop. They're both free. The one is the shopping app, which that's where just think QVC, y'all, with me, showing you how to use the tools, seeds, and supplies that we have, and why we use them and all that kind of stuff, and you can buy them, right? So that's the shopping app. Well, we have another app, and it's called Learn. That's what is home base to our online courses as well as my membership. But even if you don't have either one of those yet, there's a free online course that I've made for you in there, and it's all about how to build a trellis tunnel. You know, I have that 50-foot long tunnel here on the farm, and we made a little course showing you how we actually put that together, and I'd love for you to have both of those. And if you are using either one of our apps and enjoying it, please consider going over there and writing a review. That just lets other people know that it's okay to download it. You know, they want to just hear about other people's experience. All you have to say is 5 words, y'all. It's a great app. I love it. We'll do the job. And so that helps us so much, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and hope to see you tonight inside the app for a soil blocking, seed starting crash course. And we are going to have fun, friends. All right, folks. Ciao.